Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Hafaday Zantiro, welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry. Today we're here to talk about a topic that is current and also historic here in the Northern Marianas, and that is the recovery of remains of primarily Japanese soldiers that died here during World War II. Our guests are from Kuentai-USA, a non-government organization committed to recovering the remains of missing U.S. service personnel killed in the Pacific Theater during World War II, and their sister organization, Kuentai Japan, which recovers the remains of Japanese war dead. It's my pleasure to welcome the chairman of Kuentai-USA, Usan Kurata, and also the Secretary General, Yukari Akatsuka. Welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour.
Half a day.
Half a day. Thank you very much.
I love the fact that you said half a day. It shows you have been here before. Tell us, what is Kuentai-USA?
Okay, Kuentai-USA is the organized non-profit group based in the States. It's in North Carolina. But this group was established because we learned that there are so many U.S. soldiers that are missing still in the Pacific. And then the group was actually started from Kuentai, Japan. That's a Japanese non-profit group. And then he is, Usan, Mr. Kurata, is the founder of Kuentai. And he started this mission about 10 years ago. And the first place he was focusing at was Philippines. And he recovered about 17 Japanese soldiers from the Philippines. 17,000.
17,000. That is a lot.
Japanese soldiers from the Philippines, and the group expanded the research area, and now they're focusing on the Central Pacific, including Saipan.
Kurata-san, the card says, your business card says, as many and as quickly as possible. Why is this so important to you?
Yeah, that's for me. The main reason is my Japanese pride. And that is my reason that in Philippines, still 380,000 Japanese soldiers still there, and in Saipan is 28,000 Japanese soldiers still there. And Guam is 20, Tinian is 5,000. There's so many soldiers still there, and in the caves or under the ground. They're like garbage. That is no good.
We were looking at some pictures before our interview today, and it showed the mass graves that the Japanese were buried in, where basically trenches were dug and the bodies were bulldozed into the trenches and covered over. And it's those remains, those people, those histories that you're here for. Tell us about what you've done in Saipan so far. As I said, this is not your first time here.
So the Kuentai's mission to search the Japanese war dead started about 6 years ago. And then he was able to locate the mass burial in Achugao area. And in total, we recovered about 800 Japanese soldiers.
800?
Yes, from the 4 mass burials.
That is a lot.
That's a lot.
So what happens when you find these bones?
What happens means...
What do you do with them?
Well, our role is to locate the burial sites. So we get the permit and use the backhoe to make a test trench. And then when we find the remains, we inform the government. If it's Japanese, and we inform Japanese government, and let them know that the remains are here, and then ask them to send a mission team to recover the remains.
So you mentioned in your first visit here you recovered 800 Japanese remains. What else have you done, and how many times have you been here?
How many times we've been here?
Approximately.
Almost 50.
50. I hadn't realized it was so many. Sometimes we read about you in the newspaper, but you've been here 50 times.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit more about your work during that time.
At first, we research in caves. There's so many caves in this island and big caves and small ones and so many. But we already found 30 caves inside the bones, still there. But we report to the HPO and Japanese government, but they don't move, don't touch. That's 5 years.
So you have made numerous reports and still waiting for those bones to be recovered and
yeah.
Yes.
repatriated back home.
And some bones, somebody maybe stolen or take it, and per year, bone is a little bit.
Yeah, we disappeared we found that the bones are actually disappearing. When we go to the cave, we collect them and put them, somewhere secure, because we want them to go back to wherever they are from. But next time, like for example, we go back to the cave to make sure that the bones are there. Sometimes they're missing.
Another challenge you mentioned was that as you're doing excavations and you go further down into the grave, there becomes a point where you can no longer even really touch the remains because they're so fragile.
Fragile, yes. So the reason we have the slogan as quickly and as many as possible is because we learned that if you wait longer, the remains are disappearing, and they become they're turning to the earth basically. So if you wait longer, and then those bones are no able to be recovered.
Now, you mentioned that this time you were doing some surveys in Atsuga, where the Gyokusai charge was held in Tanapek. For those of our listeners who are not familiar with this part of history, can you share with us what that was all about?
1944, July 7th, and at early morning, maybe 3 or 4, start to the church, to the American base or lines to attack. And they're not so powerful weapons and bombs they don't have. And sometimes they have wood stick
To attack the enemy.
Just only to attack to the American soldiers. And that is maybe 6,000 Japanese soldiers and civilians to come from San Roque area to go south, and in Tanapak village, south side, and Japanese bunker, maybe these islands people know, Japanese old bunker, and in front of bunker, the place in 27 Infantry Division 105 Regiment command post is there, and Japanese soldiers to go there, and in front of command post about 30 meters, then Japanese soldiers' remains we found 3 years ago. That is very, very hard and hard attack and church the last Japanese attack.
So you mentioned approximately 6,000 Japanese were involved in this Gyokusai charge.
Yes.
How many? Do you have an idea how many remains have been recovered, or what percentage? Do you think half are maybe still out there, more than half?
I think about 1,000, a little bit more than that, but more than half of Japanese are still.
It's an American record we found in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. And that report said 4,311 Japanese soldiers buried in there.
Buried.
Yes. It's almost a mass grave. They make it. And we found only 800. And before, maybe 20 more years ago, Japanese government taken maybe 800. 16, and they're more, a little bit, maybe 2,000 is already taken.
So about half.
Yeah.
Yes.
And half still remain.
And according to the military report we found in the National Archives, it says that 406 U.S. soldiers were also killed by this Gyokusai attack. And then during the excavation in the Japanese phase, we actually found about 5 U.S. individual soldiers. They're all from 27th Infantry Division 105 Regiment. And then they're listed as MIA, missing in action, that are killed or became missing on July 7th, 1944, when the Banzai Gyokusai attack was happened.
So your work benefits both Japan and the United States in trying to recover
We
the
believe
remains
so.
of the war dead.
And then we decide to form Kuentai-USA from Japanese, research group, because we learned that still many U.S. soldiers are missing on this island, and then we tried to work with the U.S. government and then try to cooperate with them, but the fact is that their action is really slow, and a little work has been done, and not many effort has been done for this project. So we decided to form a non-profit group in the States to focus in on searching the U.S. missing.
Now, you mentioned that the Gyokusai charge happened on July 7th, 1944, and you had a special ceremony there this Thursday to mark that anniversary. Can you tell us about the ceremony?
Yeah, this time we invited the religious leaders. They are Shinto priest and Buddhism monk and priest from Japan, and we had the joint memorial service where the Banzai attack was happened, which is in Atsugao area. And then we invited local people on this island, a lot of leaders and officers from the agencies who got involved in the permitting process, and they all came to attend the ceremony.
And I understand it was held at Aqua Resort Club parking lot, where is near the site of your first excavation.
That's right. Where we put up the tent at is actually where the Japanese mass burial was found, and from there we recovered about 163 Japanese remains. And right on top of the burial site, we put up the tent and did the ceremony.
And now I understand as part of this ceremony, unexpectedly, a local resident came to you. I read it in the paper, and he kind of surprised you. What happened?
Yeah, that was a big surprise to us too. We actually wanted to have the remains that we uncovered during the last excavation. They're all preserved in the Historic Preservation Office, but we're not able to have those remains. So we were like, that's unfortunate, so we can't help, so just, have the fruits and the flowers on the table. But in the morning, the local resident, walked to me, and he said that we actually have the human bones that are probably Japanese or, soldiers, or maybe the civilians. I've been collecting those and keeping, those remains for a long time in the hope that you guys, come to the island in the future. I wanted to, present those bones to you. And I was like, wow, I just couldn't find any words to say. And then I asked him, is it possible to maybe have those remains in the front so that we all can pray for those people who died? He said, yeah, I'll get it for you. And then the box of human remains arrived, and we all think that maybe this is the strong hope of this soldier or civilian who really, really wants to go back home.
Well, we're speaking today with representatives of Kuentai-USA about their work to recover as many and as quickly as possible the remains of World War II dead here in the Marianas. And we'll be back after this break.
Hafa Day, this is Eulalia Villagomez of the Northern Marianas Humanities Council. Did you know that you can donate up to $5,000 to the Humanities Council through the CNMI Education Tax Credit Program? Donations from individuals and corporations qualify and can be used to offset your local wage and salary tax, BGRT, and earnings tax. Call our office at 235-4785 to see how you can support humanities programs in our community and obtain a tax credit for your donation. Thank you, and Sizus Masi.
Welcome back to Your Humanities Half Hour. Today we're speaking with Kuentai-USA, the chairman Usan Kurata and General Secretary Yukari Akatsuka regarding their work to recover World War II remains here in the Northern Marianas. Yukari-san, the procedure for doing this kind of excavation must be a little bit complicated sometimes.
A little bit, yes.
Share with us what is necessary in order to do this kind of work and a little bit about the work itself.
Yeah, you can't randomly go to the site and do the excavation. You have to get a appropriate permit to carry out this mission. So we submit the application to DEQ, that is a Department of Environmental Quality, and in the system it says that it takes about 21 days to get the final answer, whether or not the applicant, which is us, can be permitted or not. But to be honest, the conditions and regulation changes every time, and then that makes our mission pretty difficult to pursue.
So at times I understand you're not able to actually do what you had planned to come because there are a lot of procedures that you need to go through.
And then under the DEQ, there are other agencies that are involved in this to issue the earth moving permit. Those are the CRM, Coastal Resource Management, DFW, Department of Fish and Wildlife, and Historic Preservation Office, HPO. And those agencies are supposed to review our application and then give us the answer for this project.
Does it ever get discouraging when you come here maybe prepared to do field work and then you're not able to do it?
Yeah. Very sad sometimes, when you hear that we're not able to excavate.
But you must have a lot of perseverance because you've been here 50 times. So we wish you luck and please, continue. You mentioned that occasionally you do find U.S. MIA remains as well. Share with us some of your success stories.
Oh, okay. We found about 5 U.S. Army soldiers, and one from Tanapak. He's a Marine, I believe. And then when the dog tag was found, we took the picture of the dog tag and also the artifacts to the families living in the States. And then we were so surprised that the family really, really appreciate our mission. And then they cry and saying that this is the closure of the families. And then they cry basically, and then they say thank you so much for finding my uncle and and stuff like that, and we're so surprised.
Kurata-san, I understand you had got an official title from Paducah, Kentucky for your work. You were showing me your certificate, Duke of Paducah, because of what you've done here in Saipan.
Oh.
How does it feel when you are able to help families find closure, answers to their questions that have for decades not been answered?
That's it. So American and the Japanese and thinking on customs is truly different. And Japanese wants to the bones. Family's bones, they want. That's first. But Americans has maybe in the bones or some artifact that's like dog tags and some keys and rings, and they're very, very, very important for them for the closure. We found in research always so many times we walking into the jungles, mountains, no seaside. And Japanese Navy, the custom, Navy soldiers, if the Navy soldier died, in the funeral in the sea.
Burial at sea.
Burial at sea. And burial, is that okay? But mass burial, cold mass burial, but that is a garbage.
The mass graves.
Yes. That is no cemetery. We want to find the mass grave and bring back them their own countries.
Well, as you said, in the Japanese culture, it's very important for them to physically have the remains, either the bones or the ashes. And Yukari-san, you mentioned that one of your greatest partners here in the CNMI is actually the local people who are showing respect and care for these bones and actually, in their own way, bones, also supporting what you're trying to do. What is your experience with the local people in this regard?
Well, they're very supportive. Without their information and support, we're not able to carry out this mission on this island. And like you said that, on the memorial service day, a local resident presented us a box of human remains. That was a surprise, but he kept those remains for a long time. That's the proof that we are getting the support from the local. And without their information, their support, without their help collecting the bones from their yards, we're not able to return our heroes back home.
So one of the best things we can do as residents here is if we find bones is report it, don't disturb it, and especially respect it. Kurata-san, this is a non-profit organization, of course, Kuentai-USA. For people who are interested in supporting you, what are some different ways they can support your work?
There's some volunteers and donations. We want always that we're very, very small. We have in Japan side is 150 Japanese members, but Americans is maybe 20.
About 20 members.
About 20 members just, and donations and sometimes temporaries. That only our income.
How do you operate? You've been here 50 times.
Yes, it's my own.
Out of your own pocket. Share with us your website or how people can get in touch with you or see if they're interested in volunteering on your for your field work, either this time or next time you're coming. How can people find out more about your organization?
Please find our website, that is www.kuentai-USA.com. We have the English website for Kuentai-USA, and we need the support of the volunteers when it comes to the excavation. We need the people's hands to recover those bones and artifacts. So, and also we recommend people, if they are interested in getting involved with us, to become a member of Kuentai-USA. And that's the reason is we have to control the site. We don't want people randomly comes and picking up the things that they like to do. So if you are interested in supporting us, please email us or go to our website, and hopefully people can become a partner and become a member for our group.
And you also mentioned before our show what people can Google if they would like to see some of these historic photos of the mass burials. It was mass graves in Saipan, I think, were the words to Google.
Yes.
Okay. Coming down to the end of our show, Yukari-san, let me ask you first. Do you have any closing thoughts?
We just appreciate every single person living on this island, Saipan, because they are the ones who are preserving the bones of our ancestors. And without everyone's help, we're not able to carry out our mission. But I want to state that our group is completely non-profit. We're not funded by the government at all, and we're only depending on the charitable donations. But at the same time, we want to come back. We want to continue our project to recover the bones of our ancestors and our heroes. So I hope people understand the importance of our mission and are able to get a support from local residents and every people living on this island.
Kurata-san, your final thoughts.
Yeah. This morning, my sister died in North Carolina. But now, I'm still in there. Soon, I want to go to North Carolina, but flight is few. And maybe tomorrow I go back to Japan and to go United States. But this time we have a memorial service. There's so many this island's people coming, and very glad and surprised. At this island, I dig the bones, and maybe next week I buried my sister in American mainland. That maybe she will be American soil. But this is maybe she hope. That's her husband is 5-6 years ago was shot in front of his house with the gangsters, and she's alone. But I'm so sad in this moment. But I hope the old soldiers return back their families. That's all. Thank you.
I really want to thank you for making time to talk about this on this difficult day for you, and I think our listeners will understand how important it is in your heart. We extend our condolences to you and your family. Thank you so much for your work here. Yukari,
Yes,
thank you also.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Our guests today have been Chairman Usan Kurata and Secretary General Yukari Akatsuka of Kuentai-USA, working here in the Marianas to bring home the remains of Japanese and U.S. war dead. We hope that you've learned something from our chat today and that you will help them. If you come across any remains, please report it, respect it, and do not disturb it so that those remains can be returned to the families. This has been Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.